Okay, what we're going to do today is to take a look at the built-in Dataharvest Probot Ubot code generator, which can be found under the Probot development tools over here under Ubot code generator. Now, the code generator may look a little bit daunting at first, but I promise you that it's not once you get the hang of it. Here we've got a whole load of Probots that I've already written in the past, but let's start one from new. So we simply go in here and we create a new Ubot code generator, and all we're going to do initially is to give it a name. Now I am going to use this website here, which is the IMDb 250 top movies, to scrape as an example. So if we go back here, we're simply going to give this Probot a name, and we're going to call it IMDb 250. Okay, and we're going to add that. Within the code generator, there are really a couple of things that you have to do, and then three main options. What one has to do at the beginning is one just has to set this up, and at some point I'll put this as default, but we have to put in the fact that we are going to start off here with a number of pages. This is the input. These are the input parameters, by the way, and we're going to put in the URL, and it's got to be exactly like that, small p, capital U. The number of pages that we've actually got in this particular scrape is 3 pages, and the URL is, let's go and grab that again, it's over here, and there we go, and we'll slot that in there. Now that's kind of obligatory, even if later on, and I'll show you how, you take out the number of pages. Say it was only 1 page and it was pointless putting 1 page as an input parameter in. We still need to do that to set the whole scene up. Now these next 3 boxes here, we've got the what I call the section scraping technique, section scraping plus regular expressions technique. The second technique is simply XPath technique, and the third technique down here is probably what a lot of people will be used to, which is scraping the element, which one typically does from within inside Ubot Studio. Now I'm going to start off by doing the XPath method over here, because it's the one that I think is going to give us the quickest results to start off with, so one can get the hang of how this whole thing works. Now, to scrape XPath, or to get the XPath rather, there are several techniques that can be used, but the favorite one that I've got is using a plugin, the XPath generator. Now it's a plugin for Chrome, and if you haven't got it, I would strongly recommend you Google that and you go and get it, and I will post a link as where you can get that. We're just going to do something very simple. We're going to scrape the title, and we're going to scrape that 9.3 over there. It presses Alt-A, and when one does, one can see that a list of XPaths over on the right hand side here appear, and you can see that there are several of them, but there are several in particular that we're interested in because they're 100. Now we know that there are 100 titles on this page, so we're not interested in the other ones, and to be honest, one can pick almost any of these, and I tend to pick one that looks simple yet specific. So all we've got to go and do now is we've got to go and just select, so I can copy that particular XPath over there, and we're going to go back into Dataharvest, and we're going to put this here is the title of the film. Notice how I've used the percentage sign, which indicates that it's a list within Ubot, and then we're going to just paste that there. So that's the first XPath value. Let's go and get that second one, and the second one is that we want to go and get the 9.3 there. Now typically one has to go over here, clear the test so that it's ready to capture a new one. We'll Alt-A on that. There we go, we've got a whole new list, some of them more complicated than others. This one looks good at 100 there, so we'll click that. Oh no, oh yes I have, there we go. It's gone in pink coloured there, the 9.3, the 9.2, the 9 over there. So that's the one we're going to use there. Copy that. We are going to go back over to Dataharvest over here, and we're going to call the second one is going to be just call it points, and then we're going to paste that particular XPath in there. Don't worry that it goes onto 2 lines. If you want to just check that it's all on 1 line, you can just stretch that box across. We've got to make sure that there are no spaces or gaps on the second line, because that could throw a few things. And we've got that there saying that we're going to generate using XPath. There's only just one other thing that we really want to do. Firstly, we're going to have a next button because there are 3 pages. Now, we've got a choice of different next buttons that we can use, but the one we're going to use is the basic click element within Ubot browser. So what we're going to do is just put in what I call a placeholder next, because we're actually going to go and pick that out when we get this into Ubot Studio. And the final thing that we just need to do, we need to tell it where locally we're going to save those files. Now, obviously, when this is uploaded into the Dataharvest cloud, that's going to be choosing the data directory of the person who's logged in. But in my case, I am just going to go away and copy and paste where I keep my files. So 1 second. Okay, I keep my files here, and I'm going to call this, and we're going to save it specifically to imdb demo 250. All right, so that's where it's going to save the files locally. And once we've done that, we can just save that. All right, now with that small amount of information, simply the XPath, where we're going to save the file, a placeholder for the next button, and basically it's 3 pages and the URL, we're ready to go on to generate the Ubot code. Simply press that button, and there you go. You've got the whole complete code, which will run without any alteration whatsoever directly in Ubot Studio. So let's open up Ubot Studio over here, and we are going to switch to code view, and we're going to paste that. Now you're going to notice there's actually a little gap at the top there. It doesn't matter, because when you click over to node view, it'll take it out. It does matter if there are gaps in the middle, which there shouldn't be. As you see, we've got no red lines, which means that it's properly formatted. Now we're going to run through this in greater detail later, but you're going to see there's a whole bunch of text here at the top. There are no plugins required to get this thing running. I decided it was much better to give defines up at the top so you could see what's going on. It also allows, of course, for the parameters that you're later going to necessarily want to use in other Ubot Studio projects to come out over in the parameters over here. So we can see that we've got we haven't run this, so it hasn't put the variables, but it will give you the list of variables there. So what we're going to do, so we're going to explain this later, but it's fundamentally everything that you need to run this locally. And when you go and run it on the cloud, you see this line here, nothing required above this line when pasting it to Dataharvest. You don't need that lot. It's already built in to Dataharvest. So we're going to go over to the node view now. Now, if you remember rightly, we haven't set up one thing. We have not set up the next button. So what we want to do is we just want to do that now, and the simplest thing, one could run that, and then the Ubot Studio would be pointing to the right website, or one could just go over there, copy and paste that in, and enter, so that we can now sort of go and find the element that we're looking for. Okay, we're now scrolling down right down to the bottom of the website, and there we can see we've got our next button. That's what we want to just put into the next button. If you scroll down here on the Ubot Studio, you're going to see where that next button was put in. So we're just going to go in, and we are going to edit that, and we're going to use the normal Ubot Studio way of picking that up, okay, which is, there we go, we click that button, we capture that particular element, and then we go into the cog over here and refine that a little bit further. This looks like it's nicely laid up for us to pick out the class. So we're going to pick out the class there, and very nicely we've got one match. That's exactly what we want. So we're going to OK that and OK that, and what we're just going to do to test that it works, we're going to run that node just to see if it's going to take us on to the next page. And it looks like it is, albeit a teeny bit slowly. There is page number 2. Okay, that's it, believe it or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to go up here, and we are going to run this probot. So let's do that right now. Let's hit the run button. Okay, so the bot has finished running, and let's go and have a look and see what it has actually done. So we're going to open up the folder that we created, and we can see that we created the IMDb Demo 250 folder over here, and it has several things into it. Oh, I've saved it, by the way, there it's put a file name 523. Now that's just generated as a random number so that one can keep on running this over and over again without having to delete the folder every time. It will get replaced by something more intelligent when it gets onto Dataharvest. We've got our logs, but most importantly, within inside of here, we've got our results CSV. So if we just double click on the results CSV, we're going to open up Excel, and we're going to go and have a look to see how well it has done the job. And there we go. We'll open that up. And we can see that we've got our films, we've got our star ratings, go all the way down to the bottom, and we can see that we have 250 of them. So it's done that job entirely and completely. But it's done a couple of other things as well, you'll notice. You'll see that, for instance, it has generated a log file. Now, that log file, when we come to it, can be almost anything that you want. It can go into there. In this case, this default is set to it's completed 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages. Here we go. It's over here. And it's done. The bot has done its job and is shutting down. But it's also very good for debugging if you want to put in more logs into it. So while you're running it, you can see what is and isn't working properly. And it's also created here a progress bar, and the progress bar is in HTML. You can see when it started, how many pages it's done. Now this is going to be important when it comes to Dataharvest, because it's what drives the actual the progress bar in the cloud. So that is another reason why, if we go back to the original code generator that we had, which is over here, it's just okay, so we can go back and have a look at what we did. Why it's important to have the pages in there, even though may only be 1 page, because 1 page has to complete, and then the progress bar, which, if you're wondering what I'm referring to the progress bar over here. When it comes, this progress bar here is what it's that particular piece of code there that's generating these progress bars to hit 100. And if it's 100 pages, it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's 1 page, it'll just go from 0 to 100% immediately. But that is why that part of it's important. So let's just go back to our code generator. What's quite nice about this whole code generating technique is that you can keep a whole library of code that you've generated, and it's quite easy then to therefore go back and start looking and seeing what you've done. Now, it is virtually impossible to generate code that one can use directly into Dataharvest. One's always going to have to go into Ubot Studio to make those other changes and alterations and improve it and change it. But it's always nice to have a record of roughly how you started. So we talked about the fact that we can use the XPath as a method of being able to capture information here. But I really do strongly recommend that at some point you invest the time in working out how to use regular expressions. Regular expressions fundamentally will allow you to be able to capture data faster, more accurately, and even though you may at times wish to fall back on XPath or even the element method, generally speaking, 95% of websites that I've come across, irrespective of how complex they are, can only be solved or can be solved using regex, and there are about 25% that cannot be solved without using regular expressions. So I'm going to spend some time just explaining to you how the XPath and the regular expressions method works. Now you can use these all at the same time, so I just need to click that generate box and we can start using the regular expressions technique. Now the regular expressions technique that I'm about to explain to you, I think, is a very, very good template of how one should do it going forward. It's very robust, it's very, very fast, and it does one thing that I think you'll find very frustrating if you use any of the other techniques, is what happens when, for instance, in a list of price, a price is missing. Okay, if the price is missing, you tend to end up with a list of maybe 20 products and 18 prices, and the missing 2 will always be at the end, even though the product that didn't have the price might be in the middle. And that is because Amazon often doesn't have a field with an element tag in it when there's no price for that tag. So Ubot just skips it. Now this technique will get around that. So what we do, it's a mixture of XPath and regular expressions. And what we're going to do is we are going to go back and we're going to try and capture the so we're going to go back here. We're going to put our XPath generator back in over here. So we're going to run that, and what we're going to do is capture what I call the section. Okay, there it is highlighted, and sometimes you might even be able to get, oh, there we go, that's even better. It's got the image in there. See how that blue ring is around everything? Okay, so we're going to Alt-A that. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to therefore copy that XPath there, and we're going to go back to Dataharvest, and you see here what it says, XPath of a single item. That is the section that we're talking about, and we're going to put that in there. Okay, now one can mix and change on the techniques that we use, but just for simplicity, I don't want to generate the XPath, so I'm just going to unclick that, and over here we are going to capture something else. So why don't we try and capture the image URL. We can then later potentially use that to download that particular image if that's what we're going to do. Now we don't know what the regex is at the moment, so let's just put a bit of dummy placeholder regex. Let's put in, and for anyone knows, and we're going to come on to that in a minute, that means pretty much capture everything there, and we're going to generate that. Okay, everything else can be the same, so let's just save that as it is, and that should be enough. So we can just go straight on to generate that code. I'm not even going to examine it. Control A, Control C. Go back into the code view of Ubot Studio. As I say, you don't need to remove that little space at the top. If you go back into Node View, it'll remove it for you. Now, what do we want to do? We really want to examine to capture just the section, and you can have a look here. If we scroll down past that particular line that says we're not interested in anything there, it comes up fairly soon after that. We're going to see here there is the XPath that's capturing that box there around with the image and the text in. Now what we want to do is we want to have a look at what's in that section. So a little technique that I use is we're just simply going to stop the code at that particular point. I'm going to stop the script straight after that there, okay, and then we are going to bring into play an absolutely essential tool that we all use all the time, which is the debugger. All right, now let's put the debugger over here so we can see what's going on. It will clear out any previous runs that we've got in there at the moment. So let's just run that. I'm actually going to pause it while it runs. Well, let's have a look. Let's run it anyway. Anyway, it's cleaned it out, and it's going to run it down as far as the point at which it captures the section. And there we go. We completed everything. All it's done is capture the section. We've got 100 items in there. Now, if we open that up, look, it's got a lot of code in each of those things. But that's what we want. And if you highlight the section over here and you go up to the edit and the copy, then it's going to take all of that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go over into the regex editor. Okay, let's shut down that for a sec and bring across the regex editor. There we go. And we're going to cut and paste all of that into there. Now what we know is that there are 100 records in there. What we don't know is exactly how the formatting it is of what we want to capture. Now regex is a little bit of trial and error, I have to admit. So we're going to have a look here, and what we're looking for, each of these look like records. We're going to look for the link to the image. Okay, I've scrolled up to the top and you can see we've got the section where the section starts, and I've come across this particular link to a JPEG. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to go over here and paste it into here, and indeed it's the image of the Shawshank Redemption. So we're onto the right thing. So what we want to do is we want to come up with some regex that's going to capture 100 of those links, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now fundamentally You can go through many courses on regex, and there's probably only one format that you will need to know that will get you 90% of the way there, and I'm going to show you what it is. Fundamentally, I start by putting in what I think is going to start probably with, they may or may not all start with that, and I'm going to put that in here. And down here you're going to see we've got 298 of them, and we only want 100, so that's clearly not refined as well as it needs to be. Maybe we need to go a little bit further. There we go. That means that, actually it doesn't matter that I missed off the H at the beginning. That means that every single link that starts like that, all right, there's 100. You see there's 100 down here. That is going to be the image URL that we want. So how do we capture that whole image URL? Okay, well, I'm going to show you the technique that I use, which is incredibly simple. Firstly, I'm going to put brackets around this, and then 2 more brackets like this. In the middle, this means this is where we want to start capturing. We want to capture everything in the middle, and in this bottom brackets, we're going to say when we want to stop capturing. All right, so everything in the middle is simply is dot star question mark. Okay, so that means we're going to capture everything in the middle. See, we've still got 100 going on down here. So let's have a look at what it thinks we've caught. It still thinks we've just caught the beginning over there. All right, but where are we going to end? Well, we're going to end the first time that we come up to a double inverted commas over there. So we're going to start here and we're going to end at the double inverted commas. So that's what we're going to do now. Double inverted commas are funny ones because they need to be escaped. Right, it seems to have done what we want. There we go. That has captured everything, but it's including the last double expression. So just do that again so we can see what it's highlighting. Well, actually, let's skip down to the next one. You can see it's got the next one. We don't actually want to capture the double inverted commas there. So in order to do that, we put in a question mark equals sign. And now you'll see that it stops just short of it. Okay, now I'm going to run through the technique that I've just used in other circumstances, but I just wanted you to see how simple that was. Okay, that there's a particular command to say where we're going to start capturing, capture everything in the middle, and the last brackets is where we're going to stop capturing. And you see that little piece of text there? We're going to copy that, and we're going to take it back, and we're going to put it into the code generator. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the XPath technique for the title and the points, and we're going to use the regular expressions and the section technique for the image URL. So we're going to click that back on. So it's going to be using both techniques. This is not the best way of doing it. I'd probably choose one or the other. And the one that's the fastest, by the way, is definitely the regular expressions technique. And then we're going to just go up here. We'll save that, and we will generate the Ubot code. Okay, we will Control A. We'll Control C that. Go over to Ubot Studio, go back into the code view, Control A, Control V. Are we going to save that? Well, it doesn't really matter because it's saved in Dataharvest already, so I probably won't bother with that. Just click it across into Node View, and then we are going to run it. I'm going to put it on pause while it runs. This is not the best website to have chosen. IMDb is very image intensive and takes ages to load, so I'm just going to put that on pause while it does it, and so we can see what happens at the end. Okay, it's completed, so let's go and have a look and see how well it's done. We're going to go over here, and you can see what it's done. It's created a new directory for that, so that we don't have to keep going and deleting the old one. And we can see that the top one is the most recent one. We'll go into there, and we've got ourselves a new spreadsheet. Now we do have to close the old one because it's given the same name, so let's just do that, and let's go and have a look at that. And there we go, opening it up, and lo and behold, what have we got? We've got the URLs, which are quite long, so that's why they're going all the way over there. But there you go, the URLs. We've got the film and got starting. So this first field was done using the regular expressions technique, and these two were done using XPath. So you can see that it works. Now let's just go back and have a look and see exactly what it took for us to generate that entire code without having to edit a single thing. And off we go over here and have a look. All that it required us to do was to define this part, the pages and the URL, simple, the XPath of the section, the regular expression for that, which does require some tutoring maybe, but it's still not difficult, the XPath that we used using the XPath generator plugin, and to tell it where to save. Okay, and let's now have a look at how we can get that up on the cloud. Okay, so let's go back and have a little bit of a look at how this all worked within Ubot Studio. And we're going to just switch into code view for a second. The first thing that you're going to notice is that there's a section here that nothing required above this line when pasting to Dataharvest. Now, there's no plugins required in order to be able to run the code below that onto Dataharvest. In fact, you don't need to change it at all. You just need to cut and paste that. That's because it's got really these definitions already built into it. But it is quite useful to know what's going on here. There are just a couple of things that make life a little bit simpler at the moment. And once that's been run, you can go over here and we can see what lists we've got. And we're compiling several lists. One of the lists here is the form arguments. Now it's the form arguments over here that are the things that supply the parameters into Ubot Studio and therefore into Dataharvest too. So in this case, the 3 refers to 3 pages, and there's the URL. So the form arguments is how we get the information in there. So that's one list. The other ones are the ones that we created, the points, the section that we covered, the title, and those are the lists that we're creating. You'll notice that the way that this is done is that it saves each of the lists. Every time it goes through a page, it saves them to the text file, to the CSV file in this case, so that it can be opened in Excel. And then it clears that list, and it comes around and does page 2, it clears the list. It's really important that one does that in order to be able to clear those lists from memory. If one just keeps creating a bigger and bigger and bigger list, that's going to occupy memory, and fundamentally, eventually, your Ubot code is going to crash, and that's going to crash not only on your local server, it's also going to crash on our servers. So it's really important that one adopts, if one doesn't adopt this exact template, and there's no reason why not, then one should adopt a similar template, which means that you don't keep consuming more and more memory as you scrape more and more pages. So it goes round and round and round, committing each of these to the results table, and it automatically formats everything. It automatically clears the list. It automatically formats the whether it's be the XPath parser over here, or as you can see that we're there's also the regular expressions code that we put in here, and there's that code that we created before, and fundamentally it constructs a very neat little package of code for you that, generally speaking, is extremely fast. So how do we get that into Dataharvest? Well, to be honest, not terribly difficult. See where it says here, nothing required above this line. We simply just take that and we Control-A, Control-C, we copy that, and we're going to go back over into Dataharvest here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a new probot, and we're going to call that IMDb 250. We can't use digits in the title. We're just going to call that IMDb demo then, and we are going to give that a description, which we can do. IMDb 250, we can put that there, so there can't be any spaces or apostrophes or anything in the title. And we're just going to create a new probot. And here we are in the setup section for a Dataharvest probot to run in the cloud. We've got several sections here that we can fill out at some point. The description, the publish this probot, which we'll come on to. The input fields, this is going to be the, in this case, the URL and the number of pages. And this is where we are going to paste the code directly from Ubot Studio below the line. And so here we go again. We'll just go and do that. It's remarkable how little code is required in order to achieve so much, but there we have it. We're going to put that code in here, okay, and we are going to initially, let's just save that. And the reason why we do that is that there is quite a lot of error checking that goes on in the background to check that that code is correctly formatted and doesn't use certain functions from Ubot Studio that simply won't work in the cloud. For instance, an alert is not going to work, and it'll check for these things and it'll tell you roughly what it's done wrong. Now, if we've cut it directly from the code generator, it shouldn't have any of those things in, but it's always a good idea to save it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add the input parameters over here. Now, it doesn't matter what we call these things, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but obviously the first one was the pages. So you could have put number of pages or anything. It's not specific to that. The initial value of that is going to be 3 pages, and the order there, that's the order in which the fields are going to appear, and obviously the first one is 0, or it could be 1 if the next one was going to be 2. And then the next one that we know is the URL, and the initial value, we are going to go, and where is the initial value to that? There it is. IMD that. This there, we want copy that across to here, and control that there, and then the position of that is next in the list, and we're just going to go and save that. Now, what else do we need to do? Pretty much nothing, actually. There are a lot of things that we could do, but we're not going to do those yet. We could, for instance, format the field to be a date, if that's what we wanted to do, which we can do over here. The final thing we need to do, and this button here that says Generate Omnibot is exactly the same as this button that says Generate Omnibot, and so we're going to do that. Do you want to update the code? What this is going to do is send the code across to the cloud. Okay. Now that is all set up to run in the cloud, so why don't we simply just do that? So we can go to Run My Probot. What you'll notice now is that if we go to the Probot library over here, you've got 2 sections. You've got the public library, that's where everybody posts their probots that they want to sell and that they want to make money from, and therefore those would have been approved by us before they get there. And the private library is just the ones that you've created, and you're going to see down in the list somewhere down there IMDb demo. You can see I've tested it out a few times before, but there's the one that we've just done, and so we can run that either from here or from the developer section. And you can see it's set up the default parameters as we said, and we can simply now run that probot, and there it is, queued up to go. After a few seconds it comes into in progress. There it is, running through the different pages, 3 pages in all, so we're on 67%. And there we are, we're on 100%. Now this was just a simple CSV file, so we can actually download it directly over here. We're going to open it up in Excel. And there we have the exact same results that we got before when we ran it locally. The difference being now, as you're going to see, let's just close that down, is that this has been given a unique file name of when it was run, who it was run by. It also ends up over here, which is in the My Files section. All the previous runs that you've done and all the files that you've created, all the images that you may have downloaded, everything are held over here for a period of time. And let's say that period of time is going to be about 2 to 4 weeks at the moment. And you're going to see that I've got lots of other ones going on. So where's the one that we've just done? There it is. It's called IMDb Demo, so it's given the same name, and that is where the file will be held. You can see we've also got the log files. Remember we talked about the log files? You can right click on that, and edit is the same as view without downloading, and you can see that it has created the log file exactly as it did locally. So when it started, how many pages it did. So you can see that it started at 1634 and ended up at 1716. Not the fastest, but not the slowest bot of all time either. And then we can go back here, and obviously we can, if we want to, we can go and download that CSV, or we can view it. If it's a CSV file, we can again view it online. It doesn't look particularly neat and well formatted there, but if you just wanted to check that it actually came through as one had planned, there you can see you've got your links, you've got your title, and you've got your rating. So fundamentally, just to recap on what we've done there, we have created within Dataharvest the code generator over here. We've created, without much ado, a fairly sophisticated but very well formatted Ubot Studio bot, a pro bot as we call them. And we have done that almost entirely within the Ubot generator. We took that code across to Ubot Studio. We made a few alterations to it. For instance, we needed to format the next button, which the code generator does not do, although we can copy back and save that. We just simply copied and pasted that code, put it into Dataharvest, and we created a probot that can run directly on the cloud. So once that is up on the cloud, there are other things that we can now do with it within the recent runs. For instance, if that was something that one wanted to run on a schedule, we can now schedule that over here. And we could say, for instance, decide that we wanted that particular probot to be run once every 30 minutes. No, let's say, how about once every 30 days would be more realistic on that one. We simply would schedule that and save it, and that would appear without any further involvement from you in your My Files section over here. So for instance, we've got one here which is called the BBC newspapers, the UK newspapers, just to demonstrate that we're not restricted simply to files. So if we go over to My Files, and you see one that I've done quite regularly and recently, that is on a schedule. We'll look at the BBC UK newspapers, and you can see that these have been running for a long time without any interference from me. So where am I at the moment? At the point at which I'm recording this, we are on the 17th of February, so we can click into that, and we can see that we've got these 9 images. Now, rather neatly, you can come up over here, and rather than download each of those individually, you can actually download the whole lot in one go as a zip file, which is very convenient. So if you right click on that and you press the download button, and there we go, it's opening up. In my case, it is band zip, and one can start on image number 1, and one can just scroll through each of the images. So that's a particular example of a probot that started life in the code generator, and then we took the URL that we've captured there and simply added a download feature to that. I will cover that whole technique in another tutorial, but it is only an extension of this particular technique. So I hope now that you have got some idea of the power of the code generator and how simple it is to take code that is written in the code generator, adapt it to your exact purposes within Ubot Studio, cut and paste that code, put it into Dataharvest, run that on the cloud, and in the next tutorial I'm going to explain to you how to set that up, how to put that forward to us so that we can review it, and how to get that on the market so that people can buy that from you, either as a one-off, say $1, $2, $3 every time that button is clicked, or on an hourly basis, $1, $2, $3 an hour for every person who uses that, and how you can get paid for your work. Thank you for listening.